we should just round of applause and do this?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Hi. It's really difficult to do anything after him. Yeah. Okay. So, client-centric agency. This is something that I've been, let's say, doing, pondering, thinking about, having issues with. Didn't sleep a lot for a long, long time, and hopefully some of you will, let's say, think about the same way as I do currently, and hopefully some of you will have some ideas of how to solve all of these issues when we talk about client-centric agencies. So as Josh asked, you are mostly agencies here, right? You are. Just raise hands, please. I'll only ask this once. Yes, you are. Okay. So out of all of these agencies, can, let's say, any of you be a volunteer and just say, yes, we are a client-centric agency, and what does that actually mean? So any volunteers?
Do you want me to volunteer somebody?
Yes, please. Yes.
Fred. We're an agency and we provide services to clients.
To clients,
services, expertise.
Okay, are you a client-centric agency or you're just a plain agency?
Oh, we don't care about clients.
Yeah, clients suck. Yes, I know. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. We usually don't say that up front. You know, you're a client, you suck. Yes, but some of our behavior basically actually means that in a way, because we usually forget about the client. We mostly focus on the product. That was my history in a way, because I was a practitioner for, let's say, 6-7 years with analytics, with GTM and everything else. I'm an avid learner of SIMO and people like that, Julian and Superweek and all. But the point is, there comes a time in an analyst's life that something else comes to mind, and that's basically the client, business, and everything else. So it's not just managing metrics and managing, I don't know, small teams. It's basically a completely different way of thinking about how we manage, how we strive forward in any action that we take. Action is the keyword here, and basically the other one is focus. So this challenge is not about, let's say, I don't know, frameworks, models, and things like that. It's basically a change of thinking in terms of changing focus. And you may think it's an easy process, but it's not. Why? Because you are basically changing people. Is it difficult for people to change? Asking different questions, managing different tasks. I don't know, asking them to do something in a different way, basically, and focusing on something completely different. If you have, I don't know, a specialist inside your company who's been doing a specific thing for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years in a row, and then you just ask him, okay, we are not, let's say, a functional-based team now, we are a cross-functional team, and we are going to do things and where we are going to focus on the client. Then they'll probably ask what the... Yeah, in life, it's usually that. They're not going to say that, but they're probably going to think that. And they're going to expect some kind of an explanation, what does that actually mean? So like, let's say, ordinary manager, you can do a big talk. You can do a really big talk. You can even do 2 talks. Try to explain, create a vision of how we want to, I don't know, nurture the client, make everything better for the client, and so on and so on. But in most cases, if you are overloaded with your daily work, you will, again, say, what do I have to do with that? What's actually in it for me? What's actually going to change? Not much, basically. It's probably just the questions, and it's probably just the actions that you take. And what's probably the key role in all of this is the motivation of why are we doing the things we are doing. So, first of all, my name is Zorin. I don't know, it's the 5th time here, 6th time here, and mostly that I did the talks, it was about analytics. And I've had enough of analytics. Basically, it's only reports and things like that. It's just enough. Now something completely different. Let's try to be focused now. So you have food waiting, and basically I'm going to talk about client-centric agency. And it's going to be difficult to maintain focus. And it's basically the same thing which happens inside an office, where you try to, I don't know, tell people to focus on something completely different when they have a very narrow vision of what they do, how they do it, and they actually don't see a need to change. And if you force them, there is probably going to be a big pushback. What's in it for me? What's in it for the client? It's almost always a question of, am I going to be paid more, or am I going to be satisfied more? Will I have free time? And things like that. So if you think we're finished with food, we're not. Vegetarians, meat lovers, everyone's in it. What is client centricity? I've just listed a few items that I understood from the process that we are trying to deliver inside the agency. So the first thing is shifting focus from product to client. Just a brief history. We are an agency which exists for, I don't know, more than 15 years now. And most of our work was based on a specific set of products. Google marketing, platform, ads, analytics, and things like that. And it became extremely difficult to ask of people to, let's say, be more open to ideas. New tools, new products, new ideas for the client. Not think about solving a problem with the actual, let's say, the current tools that I have, but in a way think of new tools which could help them solve a specific business problem. So it's not a question of how do I optimize Google Ads, but it's a question of how do I optimize, let's say, my work, my task, my everything in order to solve a business problem that the client has. So that's the key point, that's the key role of a person inside a team or inside a company. And it's usually lost in translations and everything else, because mostly we ask, are your campaigns in order? Meaning that you track conversions, that you track budget, that you track basically the main metrics that you have inside the ads account. And it basically works. Let's give an example for that. Who of you does ads, Google Ads? Yeah? You know what OptiScore is, AdWords score for search campaigns and everything else. So there is a scale from 0 to 100%, and basically 100% says you're great. Yeah. Now there's a trick about that. If you dismiss all of the items, you basically get to 100%. So it's a metric of, it's not a metric of efficiency, it's basically a metric of how fast can you dismiss all of the items that Google suggests. So it's really a nonsensical thing to measure or to, let's say, push for, because again, a person who does ads is more focused on delivering the 100% of the OptiScore and less on how does it actually affect the business and everything else. And it's an issue, it's an issue. It's an issue mostly for, let's say, junior people that come into the office. They are blind to tasks, blind to everything. You need to tell them what to do. And in this case, you are basically raising up, how do I say it, idiots. Yeah, business idiots. They are narrow in mind, you have great expectations, but basically you didn't give them any kind of tools in order for them to grow, to be more efficient, to be more open for ideas, to be more, I don't know, to be something that you're going to actually use inside a 5-year, I don't know, cycle, in terms of that they are going to be senior, that you can have real great expectations from them. Yeah, so why won't try? So the first one is deeper integration with the client and everything else. So the communication is key. You understand the client business. Client's issues become your issues. And then you, as a consultancy, as an agency, become, let's say, the first point which they are going to contact or communicate with. We have a business problem. Do you have any ideas on how to solve them, on how to approach this kind of a problem? If you are narrow in your tool set, narrow in your people set, then it's definitely going to be a problem, and then you cannot offer any kind of a meaningful solution, but you're probably going to be fitting everything. You're going to fit the solution to your tools. And in most cases, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be the best possible solution that you can offer. It's really often to see that if you are a Google agency. In terms of Google, let's say, focused agency, you are only using Google tools. Yeah, they're nice. Some of them are free. Some of them are in beta. Some of them really suck, like App Plus Web, Google Analytics. It currently sucks. Yeah, it does. It's in beta. It's nice. They offer a lot of features. You have nice reports. Oh, no, you don't. And then in this case, it's basically always a question of what can you expect. And if you rely on a vendor like Google, we are a Google partner, so I shouldn't be saying these things, but we have to be real in a way. Okay, offer a solution, but be real on what the client can expect, and is it in the client's best interest to proceed with this kind of thing. This has a extremely big, it's an extremely big weight on the company. Why? Because if you want to be client-centric, offer more services, be a long-term partner, then in this case you will definitely need to acquire more skills. If there's no skills basically there, then there's no more need for you. You'll probably be a one-off agency, one-off company. Who does Google Analytics implementations? Yeah? It's the most lucky job in the world. It is. You get a job, you finish the job, bye-bye, in most cases. Then they phone you after 6 months, something doesn't work. And you're probably to blame. Why? Because you didn't phone them three months ago or something like that. You should predict that an implementation is going to be broken in some specific term, basically. So in this case, I don't know, implementation sucks. I know, I did it. I love it, but I don't love how the business is scaling with this kind of a service. You need to be more, let's say, you need to offer a wider set of services, and that's basically it. And in most cases, if you are doing implementation work, let's say, in most cases, you are the person who is following orders. A client wants to do this in a specific way or has some kind of an issue. If you're lucky, you have some degree of freedom in terms of how do you want to do that. But what to do is already decided. In most cases, I mean, low-budget project, mid-budget projects, and so on. For enterprise, it's even worse because there is a higher level of control and everything else, and there are so many smart people inside these companies, so nothing smart gets done, in most cases. But there are additional things to consider. So it's not only cost, basically, because you need to obtain more skills. It's always the revenue part, which is quite romantic in a way. So what's the question with that? So if you do long-term, if you do more services, more serious services, basically consulting services, then in this case, your client will in the end probably gain you, or your client will be able to generate you more revenue. And it's usually going to be a stable revenue, retainers, contracts for a yearly, 2-year period, or something like that. So it definitely makes sense. In other ways, you have people who service the client in a way that they are much better at understanding what they are actually communicating. And there is one additional thing which I didn't mention here, but it's always the point of trust. So each small task is basically, let's say, a building block of a complete trust with the client. And the point is, if you have one single chance of one-off implementation with a client, that's basically it. You don't have enough traction to generate that kind of trust to generate, let's say, more business, more serious projects, and so on. So it's a complex process. Attributing factors to the whole mess of, let's say, becoming client-centric is that clients have more complex questions and even more stupid questions. Why? Because we are filling nonsensical information to the market. What about cookies? Can you explain to a client what's the deal with the cookies today? The point is, why do they even need to care? That's the point. We are pushing information about privacy, about, I don't know, GDPR and things like that, but what's the end outcome for the client? Should they even care? Should it be just our job to understand what to do, how to do it, and everything else? Being compliant and things like that. And just making sure that they understand the bottom line if they do something in a specific way. But don't bother the client with unnecessary ideas, questions, and so on. They expect a more full service. In the past 5 years, I believe all of you have heard that we can measure 360, we can deliver 360, we can do all sorts of 360 things. Who of you can, let's say, currently say that they actually do a 360 view of the client? None. That's basically a big issue about the whole industry at all. So, all in all, it's transparency, it's consulting, and it's trust. What kind of people do you need inside the firm to do all of this work? That's also a question. You cannot have like junior implementation people who are going to do this part. You actually need business consultants because we are talking about business. As Julian said in the last presentations, it's all about business. Through everything else. Through Google Analytics, you have Pivik, you have alternatives basically in this case. So it's always about the business and how can you, let's say, move the business in a right direction. And this is what's essential, basically, to understand what the client business need is. Client centricity approach challenges. So the first one is change the team way of thinking, or even change the team itself. If your team cannot provide these kind of services, you basically need to get new people inside. Is it easy to find new people? No, it's not. Is it easy to change the team way of thinking? No. So what do? I don't know. We also have the same problem. It's definitely a process with a highly uncertain outcome. Highly. Because if you want to, let's say, nurture or raise a good consultant, a good business consultant, you have big issues ahead. The first of all, someone's going to steal you. Steal that person. Definitely. Especially in our industry. Yeah, as someone said, 6 figures salary, something like that. Yeah, USA. Yeah. Who is from USA? Don't steal our people, please. Yeah. we don't have enough of them. Thanks. Yeah. The second and all, invest in additional skills and know-how. Out of the entirety of your time, of your daily work, you senior business people, you senior good people, you people who earn a lot of money, do you have time to educate other people in a systematic way? You do? No? So it's your priority, but do you do it? Yeah, okay, yes. I've heard a lot of times we have a priority in our company, but we didn't do it. That's what usually happens. Yeah, we set everything and the whole project and people are inside it, but when you have to actually do it, and no, we have a different priority now. Yeah, because it's easier. Usually it's easier. Yeah, take on a more strategic role. This by itself means that you are actually gaining control over the project. You define your own scope, you define the issue, you define most of the things that in let's say, the old way of doing business makes projects go just bonkers off. Because you either don't have the time, the resources, and everything else to manage it the way you used to do it before. Okay, so look back to 2019. So that was the last lecture where there were some nice people who were working inside a team, and it would be quite easy to do it with these kinds of people inside a team. Probably. I think I wouldn't want to work with them, all of them, because it's probably going to be difficult. Yeah, it's one thing. Yeah, they're probably going to do a lot of lectures, and nobody's going to be in the office. So yeah, that's not going to happen. But the point is, yeah, you have a specific set of knowledge tied to a specific person inside the team, and that's fine. That's great. But then you have this personal level where you need to see basically if they can sit at the same table, if they can communicate. So soft skills and things that I didn't want to listen to while I was in the university. Yes. That was not a smart thing to do. Yes. So this kind of team would do you great, but you need to open your mind. Not to yourself, yourself, but also to the people that you are working with. Does anyone know what this movie is? No? Can someone just say louder? Yeah? Yes, Total Recall. Yes. This is probably the best scene. Yeah, the old one. The old
Which
one.
one is it?
Total Recall.
Oh,
Yeah.
got it, right.
With the governor from the United States, right? Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Is that Danny DeVito?
Yeah. So the first thing is what ifs. We had a chance to do a lecture or listen to a lecture in Stanford last year, where they focused on designing an organization where you communicate efficiently, positive communication and things like that. They support your ideas even if they are just bonkers, just stupidities and things like that. Again, there is no negative thing in saying anything, basically. You just want to move forward. Even if the idea itself is so high, they call it a moonshot idea. And in this case, they enforce a positive way of thinking that everyone's allowed to say their piece, but in a positive way. So I wish, I would love, I don't know, something like that. But the point is, you need to get the people talking, because if they're not talking, you will definitely not know what they're thinking about, what the ideas are, and how can you even send them to a client if they're not able to talk to you. Then you have a big, big issue. So who of you works in a bigger team, let's say 10 people? Huh? Come on, 5 people? 5 people? So smaller teams, right? In a way. Okay, with smaller teams, it's much easier. But there's always a danger if one of the team members inside a small team is up, then the whole team is completely screwed, yes. In bigger teams, you can share responsibility, and then everything is nice. And you can share the workload, and it's a bit easier. Check this PDF. It's a blueprint of how to, let's say, get people to talk, but in a positive way. It definitely helps. We had an experience that when younger people came to the office, they were actually extremely shy of saying anything. Ideas. And it was not ideas based on the, let's say, specialist knowledge, like how to implement Google Analytics in a safe way, something like that. But the point is, how do you think the client would benefit from this kind of a campaign? Just open, or how could we advertise a specific product or a service? So it's an open question. It's based on, let's say, wishes, or I would wish the company would communicate with me in a certain way. And it's a positive way of engaging people inside a company. So it helps you steer to a solution, even if the solution is high above. So open them. That's the first point. If you don't do this, it's going to be extremely hard to do anything else with them. The second one is NBA. There are many variations of this. There is the dump principle. You know that? Doable, understandable, manageable. Yeah, you know the drill. And these simple things, although they sound dumb, in a way they are actually helping. In what way? When some younger people come to your office, you're not going to push them to learn frameworks, to learn complex processes about how you do your work and everything else. Yes, it matters with the control and the delivery of services that you do, but the point is that you give them tools in order for them to express themselves better and to check what they are doing. So in this case, the new beneficial actionable is just a simple sheet. So before they ask anything, say anything, generate any kind of idea, you have a self-control tool. So you need to do a report, and you need to do a suggestion inside the report. Test yourself. Is it new for the, let's say, client perspective? Is it beneficial? Does it create any kind of additional value? And then a third part is basically actionable. In terms of, can the client do it? Can we do it? Because if any of these is not, let's say, checked, then you have an issue. Then you have to revisit the idea and do it in a, let's say, more in a different fashion. This is where it helps. I don't know, we had a lot of issues with reporting. Who does reporting out of all of you? Yeah, okay. Does any of your reports consist of ideas for the client to implement, or ideas to change the campaigns, implementation, and things like that? Yeah, okay. And does it become increasingly difficult to read all of these reports and then to say, okay, this report is a good one, based on which criteria? I don't know, some of your key accounts suggested a specific, let's say, change in a campaign. And then you say, would the client accept this? Is it new for the client? Is it something which they would love to hear in a way? One additional thing that I had, I don't know, a week ago, a person has written a yearly report or a quarterly report for a client where the client needs to decide if they're going to continue with us or not. And that's a difficult thing to do. Yeah. And then the person just, we have a form for reports. Just fill in this, fill in that, these are the metrics, this is the explanation, and so on. And then I asked, okay, if you were a client, would you like to continue with us or not? So just a simple question. And I didn't ask only one person, but I asked multiple persons to read the report and then just give me objectively, or let's say simply, is it a yes or no? And I didn't stop there. Once they said yes or no, then I asked why. why is a great question to see if someone's bullshitting you or not, basically. So if you ask it multiple times, then a level of bullshit is just becoming increasingly big. So it's a big, big bullshit testing ground. Yeah. The next one is RACI. Anyone heard about it? The matrix? Yes? Anyone enjoys doing it? Nope. Yeah, okay. I don't either. Yeah, it's something that it makes your life easier, especially if you have more people inside the client business, developers, marketing people, production people, I don't know, any kind of people which are on the, in the meeting, but you don't know what their role is in the meeting. Should I say anything? Should I be informed? Should I be, I don't know, contacted in any way in order for the decision to be final? And in this case, this RACI matrix helps. It identifies who is who inside the process, who needs to, let's say, be informed about the process, who needs to be consulted about the process, who is responsible for the process. So responsible and accountable are two different things. One does the job, and the second one is, let's say, guilty. Guilty if the whole thing is messed up. This definitely helps, not only internally, in terms of, yeah, you have your company, you have your team members, and everything is going to work. But this also needs to be discussed with the client you are doing your client-centric things with. Because you need to reduce any kind of traction between the client, or friction between the client and yourself. In ways that everything, every simple thing, every simple procedure is done in a simple way. So you know that the CEO of that company needs to be informed. You need to inform them with this kind of information. So they don't need to be, let's say, the decision maker. They do not have to be consulted in any way if a specific change happens inside the project, but they need to be informed. This is their email, just shoot them an email and bye-bye. And there is no questions. The most difficult question that you get is when you have a team working with a client and then they ask you, should I send them an email? Should I call them? Should I don't know, do something when a specific thing happens? And it's a big, big time waster in terms of that if you are asked this kind of a question, you definitely need some feedback in terms of, okay, who the client is, where's the status of the project, why do you want to contact him, when was the last time, what's the issue, and so on, and so on. So it's not 5 seconds. Have you heard it a lot that I need you just for 5 minutes? And it's probably the worst things that you can hear about when you are working on something really important. And then someone says, I just need 5 minutes of your time, it's really important, or something like that. Yeah, it's frustrating, it's definitely frustrating. But in this case, some of the simple things with a client, especially if it's a strategic client, if you want to do everything by the book, this definitely helps. And it's a simple one, you don't have to have a complex picture of the project or something like that. The point is, it's a simple thing to do. And if it's simple, I would say then it's good. If it's complex, then we'll probably have to do analytics for it and then optimize the whole process, and then it doesn't make sense. You're optimizing what you're doing, but you shouldn't be doing, and so on. Yeah, and then the helpers for the RACI metrics. It's quite clear to see that basically it defines who to ask, who decides, who needs to know, who is responsible, and who does things. Who does a specific action, a task or anything. Project management tools help in a way with this. Because you can assign roles and any kind of automation inside the project that you define can then be triggered, and then all of these project informations can be sent out to a specific set of people. So whoever does that can probably customize their project management tool in order to conform this kind of a matrix. The Eisenhower, does anyone? Yeah, everyone does it. It's something that we probably do in our daily lives, or we should be doing. And especially in terms of deciding what's trash. Especially that. This is to define what are the time wasters inside the project are, who are the people who are doing these kinds of things, and so on. But it helps the person prioritize, let's say, one priority. This is the key, where there can only be one priority. A consultant mentioned that, and it makes sense. You cannot have multiple priorities at the same time, because then you get to a new cycle of defining which of these priorities is more important. So it doesn't make sense. There is always one priority, and this should be do important and urgent. It's more of a strategic part than anything else. Do that and help your, let's say, junior team members use this kind of a tool in order to decide on a specific task. To question, to challenge themselves, where in this matrix should my tasks or set of tasks be, or where should this client, let's say, be. But they need to understand. They definitely need to understand it. And you give them a lot of freedom with this, because they are allowed to make mistakes. In all of these things, they should be allowed to make mistakes, because in this case, they learn what the consequences are. If not, you're just going to be like a professor who are going to say, please don't do that, because if you do that, then this will happen. No one's listening to that. Anyone has kids? Yeah? Did you try that? Please don't do that, because this is going to happen. And it works, right? It works. Yours, does it work?
Yeah, it works.
Yeah, it works. Okay. For you. Yes. Okay. OKRs. Anyone heard of that? Google's using that. It's probably one of the best things that I learned in the last year or so. It helps. It doesn't really change the way you do business, but it changes the way that people inside your organization see what their role in the business is. Now, this was a part of the Google program that we were involved with, and a consultant led us through this process in order to see how to communicate what, let's say, an ads key account manager has to do in order for the client, or let's say for us, and then subsequently for the client to be happy. And it's an exercise. You basically do that. Please keep in mind that whatever you are doing, just remember this image, open your mind. Yes, and just put it in your office. It needs to be present, because if not, they're going to be closed and they're not going to innovate, they're not going to do shit afterwards. Okay, there is an example inside. It's a bit of a complex thing to explain, but the point is you need to define objective and key results on multiple levels, from top to bottom. Now, the objective, in a sense, is something is basically the point that you want to be, what you want to achieve. And the key results help you determine if you are in the right direction. It's something like leading and lagging KPIs. Have you heard about this concept? The leading KPIs, which are basically actions that lead to the end outcome. Lagging KPIs is basically KPIs which are late to the game. You need to do more of this action in order to result in a positive outcome, the end outcome. And probably the last part is the decision tree. So this is not the machine learning part with the decision tree, but yeah, it can be done like that. But it's, does anybody remember what this is? Yes? Who does? Yeah? Yes. yes. It's oldie but goldie, yeah. It doesn't work in Apple Web. It does something else. So this part is something for the people to picture what are their options in a project. So if the answer is yes or no or maybe or whatever, you need to see what the options are for a person to do, basically. This means, and let's say, it's nice to have all of these flow charts inside the organization. It's great, but the point is not to create these things, it's to learn from them. Learn in a way that they can imagine what the consequence is going to be if, let's say, an answer to a specific question is yes or no. They need to build cases, and they need to understand what the most, let's say, usual cases are going to be if they decide on anything. If they don't, they'll probably be blocked inside this decision cycle. They're going to require much more information and things like that, so they're not going to be a good resource afterwards. And definitely it's the thing that you can challenge ideas on, in terms of, okay, if this happens, you expect some kind of a consequence, and then just give them a lot of why questions, and then you will probably get to a more specific answer. And yeah, questions?
After you clap your hands, then ask some questions. you.